Christian XC1 review covering Las Vegas and the world. We're doing something a little different this week. I imagine that the majority of you are going to be watching this in the post show and watching the pre-recording, and you'll like watching the pre-recording because you'll be able to get my thoughts on everything from week 7 of the NFL season. Christian here with you. Let's just break down the normal things before we begin, and of course we'll be answering some questions in the chat for our viewers tonight. The 49ers are holding on to a lead against the Falcons on Sunday Night Football with approximately, I think, like 2 minutes remaining. So that game's going to end soon. But Tom's here from Las Vegas. We're going to have a good time tonight, and we're going to talk everything NFL. And Tom, just have to tell you, I know that you were at work today, but what do you think was the best story of Week 7? I got to tell you, I think the best game of Week 7, obviously, was that Broncos and Giants game. And I think it's fair to say that, I know as crazy as it is, I think that the Broncos are going to be back in the playoffs again this year. And I think the Broncos are actually a for-real team who may be on a consistent upward climb. Can't say the same thing about the Los Angeles Chargers, but I think that, honestly, to tell you the truth, I truly believe at this moment in time, I believe that the Denver Broncos are going to be in the playoffs again this year. So how was your day? What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear what you think in the chat about that. And trust me, we're going to get to the college football coaching carousel before the end of this video too. I have so many thoughts. University of Florida head coach Billy Napier got fired today. We're going to talk about that later. I have so many thoughts about it. Honestly, it was going to be coming anyways. I think Florida was fortunate to win yesterday. Florida could still amazingly go 6-2 in the Southeastern Conference with their 4 remaining games. They'll be on a bye week this week before they play Georgia. They still have Tennessee, Kentucky, and Ole Miss remaining. I do think that Florida can win 6 games at least for a sentimental victory of a bowl game, but the reality of what it comes down to at the end of the day is that it'll be interesting to see who the next coach of the University of Florida will be, and we will talk about that a little later. Finally, also, I would just say that we will get to the Raiders as well in a couple of minutes. The one thing I will say about the Raiders game today is that it's just a throwaway game. There's nothing to be learned from today's Raiders loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. To me, it's an absolute throwaway game, and the Las Vegas Raiders have to go back to the drawing board now at 2-5. So you've got 7 games down, you've got 10 remaining. We know what has to happen. You have to go, 7-3. And it's not to say that they can't go 7-3, but the margin for error for the Pete Carroll coached, Geno Smith led Las Vegas Raiders is smaller than it ever has been. The reality of what it comes down to at the end of the day is that Geno Smith, who knows? Aiden comes back, in a couple weeks from injury. Hopefully, will he get a chance? It's going to be really interesting to see what the Raiders end up doing. But here's the thing in this regard, they took Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, who had great fireworks in Seattle a couple years ago. They ended up doing that, as we both know, and that was great. And now they're here, and it might be a little too late, right? So Raiders 2-5 on the year, running out of time, need to find a way to get something going with that offense. And again, the Chiefs, though, it's tough to go to Kansas City anyways, but if you don't put some points up on the board, that's just not great either. I think a lot of us, as I was talking with Maurice Moan, who's a Las Vegas Raiders reporter for Bleacher Report and the such, I was talking with him earlier this year before the season began, and I said to him, Maurice, in the interview we did here on C1 Interview, the podcast, the Raiders offense should be so much better with Geno Smith and Pete Carroll, and we're just not seeing it right now. We are not seeing that offense. We are not seeing the offense do very well for the Las Vegas Raiders. So, with that being said, the Raiders are running out of time. I don't know if you do a quarterback change yet, but I'll hear your thoughts in the comment section on that, Tom. Let's go down some list of things. Again, Christian, we're recapping Week 7 of the NFL season. We're going to go down all the games and get my thoughts here in the next hour. We're also going to talk at the end some college football thoughts. Billy Napier no longer at the University of Florida. We're also going to talk about Florida State as well. We have a lot of things to talk about in that regard. We're going to be here for an hour approximately talking about that. Let's start with, again, what I thought was the best game of the day was the Denver Broncos and the New York Giants. Back and forth. Broncos win 33 to 32. I mean, again, the Giants are better. They could have beat the Cowboys in week 2. The Giants are better than people think they are. They're not great enough to be in the playoffs, but they're going to beat a couple more teams this year. They are absolutely going to beat a couple more teams this year, and people will not. And people are going to be kind of be surprised that. I don't think people are going to be surprised anymore when the Giants end up upsetting a couple more teams. They already beat the Eagles. We know that. But I think the Giants are one of those teams that's going to play spoiler later into the year. That's one. Number 2, again, I think the Denver Broncos, have proven that they are actually on a new caliber, with a coach now who's there, obviously, in the second season, and he's back and all that good stuff. And a lot of people didn't think that the Broncos with their coach would do well, but he's doing well. And the Broncos look like the playoff team. They look like they're going to be a playoff team. Now let's talk about the Chargers and the Colts. Chargers, not so much. What is going on with the Los Angeles Chargers, in year 2? What is going on under Jim Harbaugh with the Los Angeles Chargers in year 2? Please let me know about that. I get the Colts. The Colts are just this Cinderella team this year, 38-24 victors today over the Chargers on the road in Los Angeles. What is going on with Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers? I would love for somebody to point out it. I understand they're dealing with injuries, but there's got to be more than just that. The Colts are a phenomenal example of that. Listen, if you're the Indianapolis Colts and you can keep this up in a very soft AFC South, my opinion, very soft AFC South. If they can keep this up and somehow they can end up with the 1 seed in the AFC, they do have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. As amazing as it is to sound, I know we're only through 7 weeks. There are still 10 games left, but I'm going to tell you something. Indianapolis Colts, no one had this at the beginning of the year. No one had this whatsoever. The thoughts on the Giants have finally found their quarterback and running back. I agree with you 100%. The Giants now just need to continue to try to progress to be better every week. And if they progress to be better every week and they work on it, they could be a playoff team again next year. That's my opinion on that front. Next moment, we're going to go back to the beginning of the day. London Rams win early in the day over the Jacksonville Jaguars, 35-7. My humble opinion on this is that, again, a soft AFC South. The Jaguars, maybe they've had good fortune of playing some softer teams to start the year. The Rams look better. I don't think a lot of people had a lot of expectations for the Rams this year, but I think the Rams are going to be a playoff team also. I mean, if you keep playing like that, it'll be very interesting to see, And getting back to what you're saying about the Chargers, I think that the fact of the Chargers having that many injuries, I agree. So much to overcome. Daniel Jones, nobody freaking had Daniel Jones on their bingo card. I mean, here's my question. Is Daniel Jones even available in fantasy leagues anymore? I'm sure all that free agency is finally over, maybe as of a couple weeks ago. I think there are probably some true believers. And none of us said in this world today to start the year that we were going to have Daniel Jones leading our fantasy football teams. That was not on anybody's bingo card. I am sorry, ladies and gentlemen. You say so. The answer is no so. That is just not the case. Not the case whatsoever. Again, I don't think anybody, if they said after 7 weeks, who's going to be the team with the best record in the AFC? The Indianapolis Colts, ladies and gentlemen, are the best team in the AFC. Best frickin' team in the AFC. Good evening. Thank you for joining me. Really appreciate that, Jam to Bread. Tom's here with me. We're talking about Week 7 of the NFL season. I know a lot of you are probably going to watch this in the replay. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast, but it's 8 o'clock in Las Vegas, and we're just starting the night, and the night is young here in the entertainment capital of the world. We'll be here for 1 hour talking about this stuff. Moving forward on that, let's go down something else, Tom. I want to talk with you about. Let's just get right to it. Let's go right down to it. We talked about this last week during the NFL Live. Mike Vrabel. I know it's the Tennessee Titans. I know the Titans are one of the 4 worst teams in the NFL, but the New England Patriots are continuing to move along. A 31-13 win today against the Titans themselves. We already know that the Titans, the Saints, and the Jets and the Dolphins are going to be in those top 4 draft picks. It's just a matter of which one is going to get that number 1 draft pick. But I have to tell you something. The Patriots are continuing to win. They are showing the consistency. I don't think anybody expected it to be this good that quickly. That's just my humble opinion. I remember there were some people in the preseason predicting that the Patriots could win 9 or 10 games. I was surprised by those predictions from those different NFL experts and those different NFL prognosticators, but they're going to be right, I think. They're going to be right. I can absolutely see the Patriots being a playoff team. I could see them winning 9 or 10 games. They look phenomenal. They absolutely look phenomenal. This is a different kind of New England Patriot team. 2 years after, Bill Belichick being gone, this is a phenomenal difference of a New England Patriots team that is winning with quarterback May. They are finding a way to win these games. I am completely surprised, but the point is, the end of the day is that it's just kind of like, you have to say one thing about it. It's just surprising, it is surprising. But yep, Josh McDaniels didn't do great as a head coach. He's great as a coordinator. It's 100% true in that regard. But the New England Patriots are finding a way. They are finding a way to win. And these are the kind of games when you're one of those teams that you're on the high front, you're on the upwards, you know that you have to win those games. And they absolutely did. And so credit to the Patriots. I think the Bills and the Patriots are absolutely going to the playoffs. Dolphins, Jets, good luck. Sad. Let's go over one other team. Let's go over that right now. The Miami Dolphins, 1-6. Their head coach is not going to be back. It's probably time to move on from the Tua experience. What happened to the Miami Dolphins today? 31-6. I don't care who's at quarterback and who's on the field. That game, that score, that game, it is not acceptable. Miami Dolphins, New York Jets are going to play one more time this year. If you're the New York Jets, you don't want to win that football game, but you could end up winning that football game. If the Dolphins and the Jets at the end of the year both have one win, I don't know how that tiebreaker is decided, but for the draft pick. But I'm just going to tell you one thing in this regard. I think that it's very sad how the Dolphins just have fallen off so much in such a short period of time. I think a lot of people expected that at least the Dolphins, at least the Dolphins could be, right? They could be competitive this year, and they're just not. They're just not one bit. You cannot lose to the Cleveland Browns 31-6 today. You just can't lose to the Cleveland Browns 31-6 today. The Dolphins last year went to Cleveland. I know they were much more healthy. They won 20-3, I believe, again, 20-10 against the Browns. But this is just, it's not acceptable. I mean, Dolphins last year, 8-9, barely missed the playoffs, could have been a wild card team. 1-6 to start the year. This is not an acceptable performance from the Miami Dolphins. So I'm just going to tell you in this regard, it's probably time to move on from Tua and the current Dolphins head coach. That is my opinion. I think there has been enough time here. I understand that back in the historical days of the NFL, that a coach who made the playoffs in multiple seasons and has produced, teams around 500 or about 500, if they have one bad year, a really bad year like this one, they deserve more time. But I think the time has just run out. I think the time is absolutely 100% run out for the Miami Dolphins coach, and I think it's just time to. I think it's just time to go. The reality though is that we talk about this all the time, and I talked about this many years ago when it was either Justin Herbert or Tua. I said very politely that I want Justin Herbert, and the reason I want Justin Herbert is because Tua is so injury prone, and it's just shown more than anything else through those entire kinds of situations that, again, Miami's 1-6. Not very good, Tom. Not very good one bit. And I know you're a Bills fan, but just not very good. Very, 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 very sad what's going on with the Miami Dolphins. Christian XC Winery, we're going to be here for another 45 minutes. I know most of you are probably watching this in the replay. Thank you so much for watching this. We're just going to review. We're giving our thoughts on Week 7 of the NFL season here. But, Tom, I just have to tell you, I agree that McDaniels will go into the Hall of Fame as a coordinator. No denying that. He's not a great head coach. He wasn't a great head coach when he was with Tim Tebow and the Broncos many years ago, but he is a great coordinator. There is no denying he is a phenomenal coordinator. And as you know, it didn't work. And you know, it did not work. It did not work. It did not work. It did not work when he was here with the Raiders as well. So, you know, he got those chances. He's better as an offensive coordinator. He is not a head coach whatsoever in that regard. So let's keep going down the list, and I'll get your thoughts. Chicago Bears 4-2, beat the Saints today 1-6, 26-14. You know, Saints have been competitive at least. I give them that. They did win a game against the Giants. We know that. Here's my question though. Bears 4-2. Is this a better Bears team this year? Have they had the favorability of who they played so far? Are they a phony baloney? Do we not know yet what the Chicago Bears really are? That's what I'd love to know. I don't know what to tell you about the Chicago Bears yet. I don't have an honest opinion about that. So I'd love your thoughts on that. Nice win today. You take care of business, but you're the home team. You got the better record. You're now 4-2 on the NFL season, but I don't know. Chicago Bears, to me, Chicago Bears have got a big question mark so far. I don't know about the Chicago Bears. So I'll look forward to your thoughts in the chat on that game. I'm going to move along on that. Yeah, they're improving every week, but I'm going to tell you something. If you look at Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears quarterback stats line today, it was not very good. And to me, the statistic box score of the Chicago Bears quarterback today is the kind of quarterback stats you'd expect from a rookie quarterback who's not trying to make any mistakes. But now we're in year 2 with Caleb Williams, right? And so you're expecting that there's got to be some level of improvement, right? And my opinion is that if you look at that stats line, and if you're a fantasy owner, you just can't stand that stats line because you're thinking, well, Caleb Williams is going to play the Saints today. He's going to put up some decent numbers. There's going to be some decent points to be had there. But the stat line for Caleb Williams today was not very good one bit. It just was not very good. And I have to tell you, when I see those kinds of stat lines, my opinion is that, yes, you're in year 2, but if we go look at those stat lines, say, I get it's one game, and maybe you're just trying not to lose because you're the better opponent, but I don't feel like I feel like it's like I want to see Caleb Williams put up consistently at least a couple touchdown passes and 250 yards. Maybe he's not that kind of quarterback, and maybe he's just a game manager. But I'm going to tell you something. I mean, is this more Jim McMahon than it is Drew Brees? You know what I'm saying in that regard? I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is my opinion on this, is that it's just like, I just don't understand how you know, it's like how do you make that consistent if you got that kind of stat line, if you look at that today? So, you know, I'll pull up his stats in a second, but the point of what it comes down to is that to me, you want consistency and you want improvement, but you also want to see your rookie quarterback who is now in his second year and is your franchise quarterback. You want to see him improve on those stat lines, and I'm just not seeing that from Caleb Williams yet. And that's where I'm wondering about what is in the future of this Chicago Bears team. And that is what my point to you is in that regard. So we're Christian XC1 review covering Las Vegas and the world. You know, League 7 review, we're going to be here for the next, you know, we're here for an hour. I know a lot of you are watching this in the replay, and I thank you so much. We're going to be back probably doing the live next week. We'll see, but we're doing a review tonight. Tom from Vegas, my best friend, brother from another mother's here. He's talking in the chat with me, and we're going over all this stuff. Let's move forward and let's talk now about the Raiders again, and we'll get back to it. The question is that what I want to know, Tom, is that I understand that people, you know, overstay their welcome in the NFL. The NFL has changed. Pete Carroll has been around for almost 30 years plus in the NFL. You know, I mean, in the 90s, and he went to USC, and then he came back to the NFL, right? What I want to know is that, are we just dealing with a situation where the Raiders took two people who were just very successful a couple of years together, but now they're at a different team and it's just not working? Or does 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 the quarterback for the Raiders not have the kind of weapons, Gino, that he had in Seattle? And the Raiders just need some better offensive players. See, I don't know about that. I haven't put the stat lines together in the box scores on the production of the Seattle Seahawks wide receivers versus the Las Vegas Raiders wide receivers in a comparison of some of Geno Smith's best games when he took the Seahawks to the playoffs. So I just don't know about that. But I do think in this regard that there needs to be some changes there. And I agree with you on that. But I just don't know what those changes are. And I agree that maybe you try a different quarterback next week. Maybe. Or if Geno does not get off to a decent start and the Raiders are not winning, maybe then you make the quarterback change. I think that the Raiders have been here now, for 5+ years, whatever it might be. Las Vegas Aces, Mark Davis's other team, has just won their third WNBA championship. And I think that I've seen the Knights win a Stanley Cup. They've seen the Aces win 3 championships. They want to see UNLV is doing very well right now, even though they lost to Boise State yesterday, which I told with Lane Bobs in the college football segment this week. I thought this would be the end because they've never been able to beat Boise State in recent history. But they're winning now. The only team that's not doing well or living up to the possibility of being a good, productive team is the Raiders. And I know, and I'm going to say this to you completely, I know that I know people would like to see the Raiders win here, but it hasn't happened yet, right? But we want it to happen, and we believe it can happen with that amazing stadium and those amazing facilities. The reality of what it comes down to is we want to see the Raiders do well here if you're in Las Vegas, if you're a fan, but they need to get it together. I think Jeanty was a great acquisition as the first-round pick. I think he's a great running back. I think he's going to have a solid future. But the reality is that they've got to figure out some other stuff too, and that's basically what it comes down to. Yes, the indoor football team did very well this year as well. They won the championship. Very well said. Christian XC1 review, Week 7 review. Let's move on. Eagles win over the Vikings today. I think a lot of people didn't know what they were going to expect for that game today because the Eagles haven't been great the last couple of weeks. I don't know. What do you think? Eagles okay now? Too early to tell? Not sure about that one. I'm not sure about that one either. I mean, the Vikings looked great to start the year. The Vikings have now settled back into what I'd like to call average 500 mediocrity, and maybe they'll be a wild card team. But it's always hard to win on the road in the NFL, and I understand that. But I truly wonder if the Eagles have fixed their problems or if this is just a one-week event. And I guess what we should say is that maybe we wait a couple more weeks. I was talking in the first, 4 or 5 weeks of the NFL season where I said to you in the first 4 weeks of the NFL season during the NFL Lives that I thought the Eagles they hadn't slowed down from last year's Super Bowl win. And I think I might have jumped the gun on that. And the question to be told now is that will the Philadelphia Eagles, I think they'll make the playoffs, right? The NFC East, not very good. Giants are playing better, still not there. Cowboys, we'll talk about the Commanders game in a minute, but I think that's going to be interesting to say. I think the NFC East can get in 2 for the playoffs, maybe, right? But I think the Eagles, as long as they keep winning, they'll win the NFC East. I don't think anyone's debating that. I think what people are debating is whether or not now, after these last 3 or 4 games, right, are the Eagles as good as they were last year? And I thought they were in the first 4 weeks of the year, but I'm not sure anymore. And I agree with you. The Vikings team has absolutely regressed. So maybe, just maybe, this was the right opponent for Philadelphia in the right week of Week 7 after how they lost to the Giants in the past weeks before that. Maybe that is just what we're seeing here, They'll absolutely win their division. I will be surprised if the Eagles do not win their division. I think the Cowboys are just what the Cowboys always are. I think the Commanders, because Daniels is not there, that's going to be a problem. I would just say to you more than anything else, no. My opinion is that the Eagles win the division. My question is that are they a deep playoff team? Are they back in the NFC East again? Are they playing for a Super Bowl? And I thought in the first 4 weeks, I thought that they were absolutely there, and I'm not sure anymore. And that is what I'm basically saying to you. So I think they'll win the division and they'll make the playoffs, but I think that they are absolutely vulnerable, and I think there's absolutely some other teams in the NFC that can absolutely take that crown. Green Bay, I think, is still one of them. Green Bay won a great game today against Arizona on the road. It's always hard to win NFL games on the road. Green Bay wins, in the last couple of minutes, 27-23 over the Arizona Cardinals today. I do think Green Bay is one of those teams that can challenge Philadelphia. What I would want for Green Bay, though, is I'd want to be the team playing them at home. If you're the home team, that is absolutely a possibility. I think that Green Bay can absolutely get there, and I think Detroit still can absolutely get there, as you know. And we'll talk about the Monday Night Football games at the end of this. We got 2 Monday Night Football games tomorrow night. Should be interesting. I'm really looking forward to that Bucs-Lions game tomorrow. As we know, the Bucs and Lions have played in the playoffs in recent years. I think that's going to be very interesting to see. We know what Tampa Bay, by the way, we know what Tampa Bay has done to Philadelphia in recent years too. We know that for a fact. The Eagles a couple years ago limped into the playoffs, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers thrashed them. And again, as we know, Baker Mayfield has just gone a second life at Tampa Bay. So yeah, you got Tampa Bay and Philly. And it's at Tampa Bay by some chance. Yeah, give me Tampa Bay every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Again, I think the Buccaneers are just one of those teams that's just under the radar. They're always under the radar. And if they have the game at home where they have a good opponent position, I think they can do very well. And I agree with you on that. Can the Buccaneers get to the Super Bowl again? Maybe. But again, it depends on how will these teams be stacked when they get into the playoffs. And I know that we're still 10 weeks away from all that stuff, 11 weeks away from the whole season being over. But things are finally shaping up a little bit. We know who these teams are. We know who's not going to the playoffs at this point. Jets, Saints, Dolphins, Cleveland Browns, probably all not going to the playoffs. Tennessee Titans not going to the playoffs, The reality of what it comes down to at the end of the day is that my point is that, though, in this NFC, Packers, Lions, Buccaneers, Eagles, how will they be organized when we get to those playoffs? Yeah, the Seahawks are there. Yeah, the 49ers are there. Yeah, the Rams are there. But I'd love to see how this is organized. I don't have much hope in the NFC West. That's just my humble opinion. I don't think anything magical is coming from the NFC West this year. But I think Packers, Lions, Eagles, and Buccaneers, I think those are your 4 right there in the NFC. Just my opinion. But a great win today by Green Bay. They really needed that victory. They really needed that victory, and I'm happy to see that they're doing. I agree with you about that when Christian McCaffrey is healthy for the 49ers, but I don't know. What did you think of the Sunday Night Football game? Not a lot of offense against the Falcons. I get it. Teams work from week to week, but I don't know. I was kind of expecting that one to be a little more one-sided, irrespective of what the situation is currently, right? That's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it, in that regard. Yeah, 49ers won 20-10, but it's like, it's just one of those things where, maybe I was expecting more of like a 28-10, 31-10 game. I know the Falcons are better this year, but they're the 3-3 Falcons. They're not the 5, they're not the 5-1 Atlanta Falcons, or the 4-2 Atlanta Falcons. They're 3-3. So I think, again, the Atlanta Falcons are just one of these teams where they're middle of the road. They might make the playoffs, but don't expect much else, right? and maybe they have improved this year, but 3-3 is still 3-3 on the year, right? So I was just expecting a better performance from the 49ers tonight, and I didn't see it. I know every game is not going to be perfect in the NFL, and every week's not going to be perfect in the NFL either, but again, 49ers beat the Falcons tonight on Sunday Night Football 20-10, but not an impressive lineup. Again, if the Falcons make the playoffs, right, I'll look back on this week and say, okay, the Falcons are an improved team this year, right? They're an improved team. So, okay, fine. I'll give you that. Let's move along and let's talk about a little bit more of this, and we're going to get back into get back into this a little bit. Dallas Cowboys today thrashed the Washington Commanders 44-22. Double checking that. Yeah, 44-22. I don't know. I mean, again, it's just Philadelphia and everybody else in that division, right? And it's really just going to come down to whether Dallas or the Washington Commanders want it more to make the wild card, right? I mean, I think that the Cowboys can be a great team. I think you believe the Cowboys can be a great team. Will the Cowboys be a great team this year? Again, they could spoil someone in the playoffs. They could beat somebody in the playoffs. But can the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones, can they be a good team this year? 3-3-1 to start the year. Again, I just think it's one of those situations where, you got teams that are playing other teams, correct, right? Dallas is in a position to win a football game. The Commanders had no wide receivers today. I agree with that. So maybe we're just in a situation, right, where, it's just a week and it's just a position, it's just a situational week, right, for the Dallas Cowboys, and it's kind of not surprising they won at this point, right? I guess. So I guess let's wait and see. The Cowboys win a couple more games, then maybe we reevaluate them, right? You lose the Carolina Panthers last week, which we still have to talk about, by the way, in a minute. But I have to tell you one thing, 44 points is still pretty damn good, But, yeah, I mean, I guess the Cowboys and the Commanders are two teams with a lot of issues, and the Cowboys had less issues today. So that's why the Dallas Cowboys win 44-22. We're going to stand by for 1 second for the intermediate water break, ladies and gentlemen. Week 7 of the NFL. I'm Chris Yannick here in Las Vegas. Just a reminder, we're talking about those games. Remember, every Wednesday night, I release the college football weekly preview and prediction show with Lane Bobs. We do it every week. Everyone says he looks like Snoop Dogg's son. Pretty funny stuff. We were talking about that last week. But I'm going to tell you, I said to Lane 2 things in last week's college football prediction show. Number 1, that Miami would play Louisville. Louisville would be the toughest opponent that Miami had played so far this year. And guess what? Louisville upset Miami. They sure freaking did. Number 2, I told him, we already talked about this, that Boise State would end UNLV's run. UNLV has a good chance to finish 11-1 on the season, but there is no college football playoff in UNLV's future now. You cannot win. You had to win that game. You had to go up there and win at Boise. They did not do it. They do not have a good history against the Boise State Broncos. And until the UNLV Rebels can beat the Boise State Broncos and get over that hump, they're not going to be in the college football playoff. So, again, every Wednesday, go over there. Please watch that. We're going to talk about college football a couple of minutes. We still got to get through the rest of the NFL, though. But let's go back to it. We'll talk about college football, I promise. But first, Carolina Panthers, this is another example, right? Just like the Bears, just like the Patriots, Carolina Panthers are playing the winless New York Jets. They get it done. The Panthers win 13-6. The Panthers win 13-6. The Panthers are now 4-2 on the year. So here's my question in this regard. You beat the Miami Dolphins, not very good. You beat the Dallas Cowboys. We just talked about the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, could be better. You beat the New York Jets. You're 4-2. You beat the Atlanta Falcons 3-3. Carolina Panthers, can they be a playoff team this year? Again, I don't think any of us in the first 7 weeks of the NFL season thought, thought that the Panthers would be 4-2 to start the year. So here's what I'm going to say to you. Do we think they can beat better teams? Can they beat better teams? The Dolphins are not going to the playoffs. The Jets are not going to the playoffs. They will be in the top 5 for the number 1 draft pick next year. Will the Panthers beat some better teams? The Cowboys is okay, but can they be competitive with the Buccaneers? How will they play against the Saints the rest of the year? How will they play, against the Falcons one more time? But I'm going to say this to you. Can they beat some better teams? If they beat some better teams, I'll start being a believer in Bryce Young. I will start absolutely being a believer in Bryce Young. But I got to tell you something. To see the Panthers 4-2, it's a nice story. I think it's one of the nicest stories in the NFL right now. The Panthers were terrible the last couple of years. Just terrible, terrible, terrible beyond words. I think a lot of people had written off Bryce Young. And the fact that we've got the Panthers here at 4 wins and 2 losses to start the year. And I like different NFL stories. I like the parity of the NFL. I like seeing different teams actually win games. It gets kind of boring seeing the same teams win every single year and be in the playoffs every single year. I like different NFL storylines. I'm happy for the Panthers. Again, I 100% agree with you, Tom. This is one of those games that if it was the old Carolina Panthers, they would have absolutely lost today. But they didn't. And it wasn't pretty, but they won. The Jets, who knows if the Jets are going to win a game this year? I'm wondering about that. We need to go down that schedule and look. That's going to be ugly. But we need to go down that schedule and look and see, can the Jets win a game? Maybe we'll do that. That'll be the last thing we do today, and I'll give some thoughts on that. But Carolina Panthers 13. New York Jets 6. The Carolina Panthers, ladies and gentlemen, 4-2. No, I was not saying that to start the year. Chris Yannick, C1 review covering Las Vegas and the World, Week 7 review. Again, if you're not watching this in the live, thank you for watching the pre-recording. I know it's late it's late much of the United States of America right now, but we're having a good time. I'm here with my main man, Tom. Okay, let's go down the list and let's talk about tomorrow's Monday Night Football games. We've reviewed everything, and we've gone down the list of all the games this week. Let's review the one last question I actually have for you. I don't know, what's the situation, Tom, on Joe Burrow returning to the Bengals? I don't even know. I honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't know. Is he coming back this year? I don't know the injury situation of Joe Burrow, so tell me that. What did you think about Joe Flacco with the Bengals on Thursday Night Football? I mean, Flacco is just unbelievable. I feel like I've been watching Joe Flacco since I was 10 years old. He's still in the NFL. What are your thoughts on Joe Flacco as the Bengals quarterback? And can he do anything to move that along? And are the Steelers now going to be going downward? Or do you think that was just a 1-week scenario? I thought the Steelers looked good. I thought they were moving along very nicely. 5-2 is a good start under Aaron Rodgers, but the reality of what it comes down to, though, is that okay. So I'm just going to tell you, though, that was a great win and an unsurprising and unexpected win on Thursday Night Football. So, me personally speaking, a good trade for a short-term thing. Maybe the Bengals can be competitive and maybe they can be near the playoffs. I agree with you about that 100%, in that regard. I'll agree with you on that. 100%. We know what happened to the Bengals. They won their last 4 games just to end the year last year, and they barely missed the playoffs. And it was kind of a shame, I think it is going to be interesting to see what the Bengals are the next couple of weeks. Again, I think that's a team that you can't write off. Joe Flacco 2 years ago led the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs, which is pretty freaking incredible because that's the Cleveland Browns. Let's see what he's able to do a couple more weeks with the Bengals. I'm really excited about that. I want to see what Joe Flacco can do as the Bengals quarterback. Let's review all the NFL scores for today, and then we'll get on to the fun part of the evening, talking about the 2 Monday Night Football games tomorrow, and then we're going to wrap up talking about college football. And, I have a lot to say about Billy Napier, and we'll get there in a minute. And I have some things to say about Mike Norvell. I'm sure you do too. Denver beats the New York Giants today. Best game of the day, best thrower of the day, 33-32. Denver defeats the New York Giants at Denver. Earlier in the day in London, the Los Angeles Rams found a way to easily beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 35-7. The Chicago Bears keep moving along and move to 4-2 on the NFL season, beating now the 1-6 New Orleans Saints 26-14. Miami Dolphins are now 1-6 on the NFL season. Not very good. Losing to the Cleveland Browns 31-6. New England Patriots do what they're supposed to do. They end up finding a way to beat the Tennessee Titans. New England Patriots beat the Tennessee Titans 31-13. Mike Vrabel. I got to tell you, Tom, I'm going to stop here before we get into the final, reviewing the final scores again. Mike Vrabel could be coach of the year. How could he not be? If they go to the playoffs and they have a over 500 10-win season, 9-10-win season, and they make the playoffs, which I think they're going to, because you get to play the Jets and you still get to play the Dolphins. So that's a couple more wins right there, right? I think that Vrabel could be coach of the year, and I think he fucking deserves it, because what the Patriots were the last couple of years was dead on arrival, beyond dead on arrival. So I just got to tell you, I'm going to say that as an early thing. Mike Vrabel, coach of the year in the AFC and the NFL overall. Give that to him. Las Vegas Raiders really got to start finding some offense. Lose today to the Kansas City Chiefs 31-0. Philadelphia Eagles bounce back against a Minnesota Vikings team, which is now going downward. Eagles beat the Vikings 28-22. Carolina Panthers 4-2. Who would have thought? Who cares if you beat an 0-7 team? You're 4-2 on the season. Carolina Panthers 13. New York Jets 6. Will the Jets win a game this year? We're going to talk about that in a minute. Indianapolis Colts continue to move along. Yep, the Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. There are a lot of injuries there, but a bad loss at home today, in my opinion. Indianapolis Colts 38. Los Angeles Chargers 24. Dallas Cowboys in a situational game this week, as Tom described it. I agree. Commanders didn't have any wide receivers today. Dallas 44 at home. Washington 22. We'll see what the Cowboys become over the next couple of weeks. Green Bay finds a way to win on the road in a difficult environment, beating the Arizona Cardinals 27-23. Those are your NFL scores from this NFL Sunday. Hope you enjoyed this NFL Sunday. Let's move along. Monday Night Football now. Buccaneers, Lions. I have two thoughts. One, will be a close game. Will be an exciting game. It'll be very interesting. Very interesting to see how this one progresses. I have to tell you, it's at Detroit. So I say a little advantage to Detroit. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If Tampa Bay is as good as we think they are, Tom, and you believe they are, they have to win tomorrow night. They have to win tomorrow night. If Tampa Bay wins tomorrow night, I will be a true believer that they can be in the NFC title game and they can be in the Super Bowl this year. I will be a firm believer if they end up beating Detroit at Detroit tomorrow night. So let's see. But if they don't beat Detroit tomorrow night, then here's my situation. I think Tampa Bay is great at home in the playoffs, but can they win on the road? That's the thing I want to see. Again, post Tom Brady, right? Post Tom Brady, Can the Buccaneers win on the road in the playoffs? That is what I would be worried about. And I think that the Buccaneers, if they want to really get there, they need to win games like tomorrow night. So I'm really excited. Freaking great game. Tampa Bay, Detroit tomorrow night, Monday Night Football. What a great way to end the NFL week. Also, later in the evening, less exciting, but something. The Houston Texans are going to the Seattle Seahawks. Because of how the Houston Texans have started their year, as we've talked about, but how they have started their year, how the Houston Texans have started their year, they really need to win this game, I think. The Seattle Seahawks, again, are one of those teams where I just don't know what to make of them yet. But I believe because of how the Houston Texans have started their year, this is kind of a must-win spot. I think this is going to be a very close game. Seattle's 4-2, so they can afford to lose this one. I think the people who care about this game are the people who are Seattle Seahawks fans and Houston Texans fans. You know who the people who care about this game are, Tom? They're the people who are in a fantasy football league and they've got either a Seahawks or Texans player left and their opponent has nothing and they're down somewhere between 7 to 10 points and they need about, 8 to 11 points to win. That's my opinion. Or you're in that DraftKings league, right? You're in that fantasy football league and you're knowing that you're the only one, you and a couple people, and you need to move up in that roster in that weekly entry spot, and you've got a Seahawks or Texans player left. Those are the people who care about this game. Those are the people who care. And the last group of people who care are the people who are NFL junkies, NFL fanatics. They watch every single NFL game, and they are not excited to go to work on Tuesday. They're not excited to go to work on Tuesday. I'll have the game on in the background, I'm sure. It's West Coast. When you're on the West Coast, it's so much easier. But the reality of what it comes down to is you're going to have individual people rooting for Seahawks and Texans, wide receivers, running backs tomorrow night, I'm sure. Maybe even tight ends and kickers. Those are the people who care about that game. I think that what I don't like about the Monday Night Football schedule is that, in the last couple of years, we would have these Monday Night Football games like in week 2 or week 3, right? And then it would end. These two a game a week things in week 7, it's just too late in the NFL season to be doing that. We should only be having one game. I got a Thursday game. I got all the games on Sunday. I got one on Sunday Night Football. I've got one on Monday. I've got one in London. You're spreading them out too much, my opinion. Just put one game on Monday Night Football. Put it on at, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 5:20, whatever it is, and let people go to bed, on the East Coast by 11. Who's up at, who should be up at like 2 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning watching the Seahawks and the Texans on the East Coast? Who should be doing that? My opinion, this is just my opinion. I love the NFL. I've interviewed many NFL players over the years. I love Mark Davis. He's a great guy. We've met him a couple times in a couple interviews. Hopefully we'll have him on C1 interview again here shortly. We're working on that. We continue to will. We want Mark on. Congratulations, Mark. Your aces are great. Love Asia and company. But I'm going to tell you, I don't like this 2 Monday Night Football scenario. 2 Monday Night Football scenario. I don't like it in week 7. Do not like it one bit. It's just too late in the year. You got a London game. You got a Thursday Night Football game. You got all the games on Sunday. You got Sunday Night Football. You got Monday Night Football. Give me one game on Monday. We're now in the stretch now where Lane was telling me this during the college football week. I think there's a game like every day for the next 40-something days, college football or NFL, which is exciting, but too much for Monday Night Football. Too much for Monday Night Football one bit. That's just my opinion. Okay. Final 10 minutes here, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Yannick again. Thank you so much for watching. Let's talk college football. We'll just get right to it. Billy Napier had to go. from the University of Florida. There were rumors earlier in the week that he was going to get fired no matter what the result of the Mississippi State game was. The Gators were lucky to win yesterday on a defensive turnover in the last 30 seconds. They're going to have a new coach next year. I think the Gators still can win 6 games. I think they can beat Kentucky. I think they can beat Florida State, maybe Tennessee. I think they'll be even competitive against Georgia in 2 weeks, even though they don't have their head coach anymore. The Gators were competitive last year against Georgia. Do I think they can win? I don't know, but that's 2 weeks from now. But the Gators need a new head coach. After Billy Napier last year defeated LSU, defeated Ole Miss, defeated FSU, won the bowl game against Tulane, everybody thought that, maybe we're on an uphill now, right? Maybe we're on an uphill. Well, supposedly the boosters are ready to take care of that, Tom, for the money that Napier's going to get. But we thought after, I think, those last 4 or 5 games last year that the Gators were on the way up. And we thought maybe this is the year that they end up in the College Florida playoff. Tom, you should have seen the game last year. Florida was winning at the half until our quarterback got hurt. I think if DJ Lagway commands it correctly, Florida's got a great defense. That's one thing you got to realize. Florida's got a great defense. I think Florida will play Georgia close. You'll be surprised, and they got nothing to lose. You will see. We'll talk about Florida State in a minute, but I'm just going to tell you in this regard, you have to fire the coach now because you want to get a head jump on the coaching search for next year. You want to be one of those first jobs open. And obviously Penn State, when they fired James Franklin last week, thought the same exact thing. So now you've got the University of Florida and you've got Penn State looking for head coaches next year in October. So, they're already at the head starting points of next year. But I do think Florida will be competitive against Georgia. You'll be surprised. I know my Florida Gators. I think they'll be very competitive, at least for 3 quarters. We'll see. So now let's go to number 2. Mike Norvell, Florida State, 3-0 to 3-4, losing to Stanford last night, 20-13. If you told me 3 weeks ago, there's no way that Florida can beat FSU. Now I tell you all the hope in the world. That game after Thanksgiving, Florida State's going to be close, and Florida can absolutely beat FSU. What happened? Why did Florida State go from beating Alabama to going to 3-4? I think it's time for Norvell to leave. No, I think it's just over. The reality of what it comes down to is that people thought that FSU was back and Miami was back, and clearly FSU is not back. Florida was nowhere. Florida could have been back, but they're nowhere right now. Miami might be back, but you lose to Louisville. If you lose one more game, University of Miami Hurricanes, you're not in the college football playoff because there's a chance you're not going to be in the ACC championship game, my opinion. And I don't think it's guaranteed for the Canes the rest of the way if you look at that schedule. There's a possibility they could lose one of those last games. So, but I'm telling you, FSU, they thought they were back. And on the other side of the coin, the Alabama Crimson Tide, I think the Alabama Crimson Tide started the year slow, and as I've talked about with Lane Fobbs the last couple of weeks, they're just getting better every week. Yeah, they're not the Nick Saban Alabama Crimson Tide, but they're getting better every week. They really are getting better every week. And the reality of what it comes down to is that you can lose the first game of the college football season and still win the national championship. I'm not saying Bama's going to win the national championship, but my point is Alabama has improved. FSU has gone in the completely opposite direction, and we're looking at a situation where it's time for FSU to possibly move on from Norvell. Now, I don't know if FSU's boosters want to step up the way the University of Florida's boosters have, but I'm going to tell you one thing again in this regard, in my opinion. Not great if you're FSU. I watched the end of that game. Not good. Against Stanford last night, no, not good. That is the game where you're supposed to win to stop the bleeding, and they did not stop the bleeding. Stanford is not a great football team, and they lost on the road, and it's tough to win on the road in a college football environment in a major power conference, and I agree with that. But I'm going to tell you one thing again. That is not acceptable. if you're Florida State. You had to win last night, my opinion. So here's what I'm going to ask you now. So let's go down the list. I'm going to open something up, and I want to get your opinion as we're looking at some of this stuff right now. First question I have for you right now. Who do you think is the best team in college football? Is it Ohio State? Do we know yet? Are we unsure about that? Who do you think is the best team in college football? I'd first love to know your thoughts on that. That's my first question. And then my second question to you is that, I feel like we're living in a parallel universe when Indiana football is number 2 in the nation. Here's my question to you. How good is Indiana? I don't think Indiana can beat some of these other teams like Texas A&M, Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, Oregon. They did, but I think when it all comes down to it, in a playoff situation, I'd take Oregon. I know that they beat Oregon last week, but how good is Indiana football? I don't think Indiana's beating Ohio State. I think if Indiana played Ohio State today, Ohio State would probably win something like 49-35, my opinion. I don't think that they have the personnel to keep up with them. I think Ohio State, hands down, is the best team in college football. I agree with you. 12 teams get into the playoff, but I just have to tell you, I just look at this thing and I say to myself, are we going to see Alabama versus Indiana? Indiana can't beat Ohio State, Alabama, or Georgia. I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And there's a good chance that, and there's a good chance after yesterday, Notre Dame beating USC. I think Notre Dame, they beat them last year. I think Notre Dame could beat Indiana again if Indiana played Notre Dame in the playoffs also, my opinion. I think it's an amazing story for a team that you don't expect much from. Indiana was always at the bottom of the Big Ten, lucky to win 6 games some years in a bowl season. They have turned it around the last couple of years. It's the Cinderella of college football, the Indiana Hoosiers in college football, the Indianapolis Colts in professional football. Indiana football right now is at the top of the world. It's not basketball. It's not the Pacers or the Hoosiers or the Fever with Caitlin Clark, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Indiana Hoosiers and the Indianapolis Colts of all teams, if we can believe that. I have to tell you, let's just do something quickly here because, I like to look at this stuff because, I like to think about the future. If I could just have this thing close here, just give me a minute on my browser. I want to pull something up and I want to have a discussion with you. Let's take a look, So it's like Indiana's got left UCLA, fired coach already, not very good. They've got Maryland. That could be a tricky game. Penn State is playing for whatever they want to play for. They've got great talent, so that's going to be a tricky game because that's at Penn State. Wisconsin, they'll win, and Purdue will be a tough game to end the year. So maybe at Penn State, maybe at Purdue. Those are probably the challenging games left for them, right? Maryland, I don't know. Maryland's a good question also. I think there are 3 road games at Maryland, at Penn State, at Purdue. We'll find out how good Indiana really is. Maryland is 4-3. We'll see. Maryland could be the trap game. I agree with you. So that's number 1. I don't know if Indiana loses 2 games, so they still make the playoff. I could see them losing 2 games to Maryland and Penn State, right? Okay, so we'll start with that. Okay, now let's just take a look right here, right? Ohio State, Penn State should win at home. They should win at Purdue. That could be the tricky game. UCLA again. Rutgers. Michigan's not very good, even though it's at Michigan. I think the only game left, truly, that the Ohio State Buckeyes have to worry about, in my opinion, is maybe Penn State this week and maybe at Michigan. I don't know. Again, that Purdue game could just be tricky because it's a road game. You think if Indiana loses one game, they're not making it? I think they make it if they're 11-1. No, they would drop that much. You think? I mean, if Miami loses to Louisville, I mean, I don't know. There's 12 teams. I still think Indiana probably gets in at 11-1. I think it depends on who they lose to, also, but that would be such a fall, my opinion. I think Indiana probably gets in at 11-1. So, all right, again, I know there's some great teams like Ole Miss and some other teams waiting in the wings, but that's kind of interesting. Last story that I think is kind of amazing. Georgia Tech is 7-0. No one's really talking about them. Remaining games: Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, Pitt. That Georgia Tech game, the last week of the season, is going to be the best Georgia Tech game we have in a long time. That is going to be a phenomenal game, and it's going to have playoff implications as well. See, we talk about, these 12 teams expanding, and how a lot of people don't like it, and how it makes some of the regular season games meaningless. That Georgia Tech game, the last week of the year, is going to be an important game for the college football playoff scenarios for both of those teams. If Georgia Tech can get there 10-1, 11-0, they'll have some implications. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. I'm looking forward to that game, the last week of the year. That is going to be a phenomenal game, my opinion. We know what happened, when they played the last time, a lot. So, okay. So let's just talk final thoughts. What did you enjoy most about the college football season, the college football week last week, as far as upsets go? What did you enjoy? What do you want to talk about? Is there anything I missed? I think Vanderbilt's an incredible season, is having an incredible season. I joked with Lane on the college football podcast last week. I joked with him. I said, Vanderbilt and LSU have not had a meaningful game like this till 1990 Steve Spurrier football, when LSU was not very good. Back in the mid-90s to the end of the 90s, LSU was beating 1995, Florida beat LSU 56-13. Think about that. That's the last time Vanderbilt was competitive with LSU. I always joked, or probably beat LSU or came close to it. I mean, Vanderbilt is just one of those teams. Again, Vanderbilt, Indiana, Georgia Tech, these teams that we don't expect to be there, all looking very impressive. I'm going to jokingly say that. Cannot believe. I'm going to say this. I'm going to jokingly say this. It's great that Florida's not playing Vanderbilt this year, because that would be a loss. Jokingly speaking. I mean, Florida's beat Vanderbilt something like 30 of the last 32 times or whatever it is. But jokingly speaking, yeah, that wouldn't be good. Not this year. I just have to tell you, I don't, it's like, I feel like we're in a video game in a college football. I feel like we're in a college football video game with Indiana, Georgia Tech, and Vanderbilt doing well. And they've just got great gamers playing those teams, and that's why they're doing well, It's just, it's so incredibly weird and odd, but, it's going to be an interesting college football playoff bracket, because I think we're going to get some teams there that people are surprised about. So let's just I want to look at something quickly to end. We're going to look at two things, I promised. Let's look at the Miami Hurricanes schedule to begin, because Georgia Tech's undefeated. Let's look at the Miami Hurricanes remaining schedule. And then again, and then we'll go from there. Stanford, they should win, but Stanford just beat LSU, but they should beat Stanford this week at home. The game at Southern Methodist, I think, could be challenging, potentially. Syracuse, we know how they played. Syracuse will play them tough. Syracuse beat them last year to end the year, in my opinion. NC State at home, I don't know. I think the games that are challenging for Miami are they're going to have to go on the road against Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh to end the year. And I think Pittsburgh is capable. I don't know about Virginia Tech, but I think Pittsburgh is absolutely capable of beating Miami in that final week of the year. They beat FSU. FSU is not the greatest team, but they did beat FSU a couple weeks ago. I think Pittsburgh is more than capable of upsetting Miami in that last week of the college football season. So Miami better be paying attention if they want to get in. That could be a second loss for sure for Miami. That's my opinion. So Hurricanes, better look at that game against Pittsburgh to end the year, because Pittsburgh could absolutely win that one. Final thoughts. Again, here's what we're going to do now. Last thing. New York Jets, can they win a game this year? Let's take a look at that. New York Jets are 0-7, ladies and gentlemen. Can they win a game this year? Except against the Dolphins, can they win a game this year? You wouldn't want to win that game because you'd want to be the first pick in the draft, obviously. So, but let's just take a look quickly. Then I'm going. By the way, the thumbnail is me with NFL great Emmitt Smith many years ago, about a decade ago, back in Florida, for those of you wondering who the thumbnail is. If you don't know, I mean, if you don't know that, that's, Cincinnati not winning. At Cincinnati, the Jets aren't winning that one. They could maybe beat the Cleveland Browns at home. Not going to win at New England. Not going to win at Baltimore. Not going to beat Atlanta. Yeah, it's basically they either have to beat the Browns in Week 10 at home, the Dolphins in Week 14 at home, or on the road against the Saints Week 16. I think the Dolphins is probably the best of the three there. I just have to tell you something, though. We could be looking at a 0-17 New York Jets football team. Would anyone be surprised by that at this point? Again, if you're the Jets, you don't want to beat the Dolphins or the Browns or the Dolphins or the Browns, or the Saints. You don't want to win those games because you want the number one draft pick. But yeah, I think we could actually see a winless football team. I think we could absolutely see a winless football team in the NFL this year. We'll see. I'm Chris Yandak, C1 Interview. Thank you for watching our Week 7 NFL review. Thanks to my main man, Tom, for being here. If you're watching the replay, you get all of our thoughts. We'll probably be back to the NFL Live next week, regular time. We'll see about that. Thank you so much for watching on the main channel now. Great interview with actor, show business legend Rich Little here in Las Vegas. He's 86, still performing. Please watch that 52 minutes. So many great stories about Johnny Carson and Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack and Las Vegas in general. He's one of the last few people around who can talk about the greats like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Judy Garland. Please go over and watch that. I think you will love it. As always, this coming Wednesday, Lane Fobbs and me will be back for Week 9 of the college football predictions. It's going to be so much fun talking with him about Miami Hurricanes losing, and the Gators are going to get a new head coach finally. So that'll be good. Be fun talking with him. Can't wait. Bearcat Bites. If you don't go over to Twitter, BEARKAT Bites. Go over there and hang out with him and watch him. Sam Houston hasn't won a football game all year. He loves covering the small schools in college football, but he's a TAMU grad, so he's excited, obviously. TAMU's doing very well this year also. We'll see. TAMU can make the playoff. We'll see, though. TAMU's going to have some tougher games the rest of the year. That's one we didn't talk about, but we'll focus on that next week. I'm Chris Yandak, C1 Interview in Las Vegas. Thank you for continuing to watch. We so much appreciate it. Hit the like button below. Make a comment if you want. I'll see you next week. Enjoy your football week, and see you next weekend.